Pachinko's second season is finally here, and it turns out filming was so tough that it completely shifted the cast's perspective on the K-drama industry as a whole. Not only is the acting and the storyline of season 2 amazing, but the cinematography and visuals are also absolutely mesmerizing. It turns out that for the second season, shooting took place in both Toronto and Korea. Lead actress Kim Min-ha revealed that in Toronto, everything was filmed on a set, so the crew built the surroundings entirely from scratch. Moreover, the part of the drama where Hansu builds a house for his family during the war is all filmed in Korea. Min-ha shared that the shooting took place in the parts of the country she had never been to before, making it even more special than it already was. One downside to this was that filming in Korea took place in June, so it was unbearably hot and humid. Min-ha also revealed that in Toronto, a big downside to filming was the food. She admitted that everyone involved in the project started to miss homemade Korean food. To satisfy her craving for traditional Korean cuisine, she cooked meals in her apartment and brought them to the set to enjoy with her cast and crew during the breaks. She also shared that being in Toronto made the whole cast feel a little homesick, which led to them getting very close to each other. On days off, they tried to make the most of it by going out for drinks together and having nice meals at some of the best restaurants. At some point, Min-ha and some of her colleagues even went on a trip to Iceland, which perfectly shows just how strong their bond got. Her co-star Lee Min-ho shared this sentiment and explained that due to his extended stay overseas, he started seeing his colleagues as his closest friends. Although the filming period wasn't that long, Min-ho spent a lot of time with his colleagues, even on his days off, which isn't that common for people in this field of work. Moving on, both Min-ha and her Min-ho shared some cute details about filming the opening credits for season 2. Lots of cast members, especially the kids, were really shy to film these particular scenes. She recalled that a few kids would come up to tell her it was the worst day of their lives because they were too embarrassed to dance on camera. The adults, on the other hand, couldn't wait to film the opening credits because it was the perfect moment for them to release some stress. Min-ho was probably the only cast member who didn't experience it this way because he had quite a lot on his plate right before filming. He was spontaneously asked to do the moonwalk during the opening credits, and well, he was a little out of practice. Elaborating on the experience, he said, "Just a few days before filming, they suddenly asked me to do the moonwalk, so I had to cram in all the practices in 3 days. Dancing is a challenge for me, so it required a lot of practice. Although it was challenging at first, everything turned out just fine, and fans wouldn't have wanted it any other way." Speaking of sudden experiences, did you know that Min-ha wasn't even aware she was auditioning for Pachinko? In an interview, she revealed that landing the role of Sunja felt somewhat like a magical occurrence. When she was first starting as an actress, she was completely independent, meaning she wasn't represented by an agency. To be able to make a living, she took on many roles in plays and indie projects. Not to mention, she attended countless auditions, almost on a daily basis, but without much success. Despite facing numerous setbacks and tons of rejection, Min-ha stayed motivated and determined. Her consistent auditioning efforts eventually led to a memorable encounter with a casting director who was impressed by her talent and potential. Even though she didn't secure the role in that particular audition, the casting director recognized her exceptional qualities and recommended her to the team behind Pachinko. The casting director was intrigued by her, and before she knew it, she'd be starring in one of the most successful historical dramas to date. The casting process wasn't easy whatsoever, as getting noticed by the casting director was only the first step. Min-ha revealed she had to go through quite a rigorous audition process, which lasted over 3 months. The production team behind Pachinko had a really hard time finding the perfect actress to play the role of the younger Sunja. After many failed auditions that left them unimpressed, they decided to give Min-ha a call for a short audition. She agreed to give it a shot, and after reading the script, she was completely in awe of the storyline. She thought to herself that this was something she should do right away, but at the time, she wasn't aware this was the script for an adaptation of Pachinko. She only found out about this detail after she got the second call. She explained that they hid the name of the project for confidentiality reasons. Min-ha then shared that it took over 3 months between her second audition and the final chemistry audition. She didn't mind this though, since the spare time allowed her to figure out the character she was playing. On The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, Min-ha revealed that because she didn't know what she was auditioning for, she hadn't read the book in preparation. For those who don't know, the drama is based on a New York Times bestseller of the same name written by Min-jin Lee. Upon finding out she was starring in Pachinko after receiving the second call, Min-ha made sure to read the book immediately. She recalled she started reading it at around 10 in the evening and didn't stop turning the pages until she finished finished it at 8 in the morning. Reading the book was the least she could do in terms of research, which meant she had to expand her knowledge about the colonial era in other ways as well. She explained that most people with Korean heritage are aware of the history since they're taught these things in school. However, to brush up on the historical facts, Minha revealed she read a lot of other books. Knowing everything about the history wasn't enough to capture the emotional aspects of her role, though, so she had to get a little more creative. To form an emotional attachment, Minha decided to get really personal and involve her grandmother in the project. She explained that her grandmother is 94 years old, meaning she was alive during the colonial era and experienced everything firsthand, making her the perfect person to ask for advice. Minha shared that she went over to her grandmother's house and asked her every gut-wrenching question she was curious about, even though she knew it could get very painful at times. She admitted that while listening to the stories her grandmother told her, she got unbelievably emotional. Minha thanked her for staying strong during that rough period, and most importantly, she thanked her for surviving. She revealed that while she was acting as Sanja, she kept being reminded of her grandmother's words. This experience completely changed her perspective on life, and now every time she calls her family, she shows them a lot of gratitude. Additionally, when the first season of the show aired, Minha called up her grandmother so that they could watch it together. This was a heartwarming and incredibly emotional experience since the authenticity and raw portrayal of the characters and their struggles deeply resonated with her. They had to pause the show quite a few times to wipe away their tears. It got to a point where she was crying so hard that Minha had to ask her to stop because it was making her tear up as well. Minha didn't only contact her grandmother, she also received a lot of help from her mother as well. In an interview, she revealed that playing the role of a mother was incredibly daunting to her because she'd never been in the shoes of a mother before. The laboring scene was especially a big struggle for her since she'd never delivered a baby herself. To make it look as authentic as possible, she watched a lot of documentaries and asked both her mother and grandmother for advice. Despite having access to all this information, it was still hard to get a sense of how painful giving birth actually is. Luckily, the director was there to give her the necessary instructions, which resulted in her screaming at the top of her lungs on set. Minho also addressed his casting process during an interview and revealed why he chose the role despite not having a lot of screen time. Sharing his thoughts, he said, "I've never based my decision on the amount of screen time. In Korean projects, there weren't many opportunities to show something new, but when a message resonates with me, I'm more drawn to the project's direction than to the quantity of my role." The truth is, Minho was incredibly moved by the message Pachinko was trying to convey. He shared that he was happy to see that a story that hadn't received much attention at first was now drawing global interest. He added, "We live in a time where, with a little effort, we can access very personal stories. It was meaningful to listen to the stories of those who lived through that era, often unnoticed and overlooked." In other words, Minho developed an entirely new outlook on his work after filming Pachinko, and it might change his career completely. He recently spoke up about wanting to bring more variety to his work, so it seems like he's no longer looking to film traditional K-dramas like we're used to from him. We're excited to see the new projects he'll bring to the table in the future.